Yine durup halkımız ayağa vuruşup her yanda yola çıkanıyla halkımıza salıp alo her bir diyarlarda kan verir cavanlar hak yolunda bugün azatlığa ahd edipler bir de geleler vuruşup duralar can verip her zaman kuyu her kıyamon gate u biyamon utsalalar
Ghazvini dynasty reigned for the period of time between the French Revolution all the way to the end of World War I. In all that time, if an Iranian patriot reached a high position in the government, the Shah and his men made sure he disappeared. Garam Magham Fahani was a confident minister of Muhammad Shah, but was murdered by conspiracy, and Amir Kabir, who was a minister during Nasser-ed-Din Shah's rule, had to face the same fate. The Iranian constitutional revolution had two driving forces. First was the economic force, which unified the domestic merchants from all over the country. The second force of the revolution was the intellectual elite, the wave of new ideas which had started from Europe and reached Iran. Fortunately, there were enough intellectuals in Iran who were able to put the society on that path. Intellectuals like Mirza Jahangir Khan, publisher of Zur Esrafil newspaper, Malakol Motakalamin, founder of the Revolutionary Council, Mirza Abbas Gholi Khan Ghazvini, leader of the Ardamiyad Committee, Tari Zada, Tabriz representative, Ali Akbar Dakhoda, writer of the Dakhoda Dictionary, and Mirza Aga Khan-i Kamani, founder of social sciences in Iran. Even though there were great differences between the demands of the bazaar class and the intellectual elite, in the fight against the corrupt government, they were in the same front. Their union, of course, would not go far if they were not joined by some brave fighters who created the fighting arm of the revolution. Freedom fighters like Zattar Khan, Bagha Khan, Yeprim Khan, and Samson Ozaltana. The most important incident leading up to the revolution was the assassination of Nasser-ed-Din Shah, Sultan of the century, in 1896, after 50 years of corrupt and brutal rule. The people of Iran have long fought for their independence, liberty, justice, and democracy. The constitutional revolution of 1905 was a turning point. Whether a nationalist, a Bazari, or a Bakhtiari, or a man like Bagha Khan or Sattar Khan who rose up to defend the nation, the country was caught between the Russians in the north and the British in the south and central Iran. They thought only of their own interests. The new monarch was not any better than his father, who was assassinated in 1896. He acquired new lands to finance his European medical visits to the detriment of his own people. In 1905, global events led towards inflation. The price of sugar rose by 33%, wheat 90%, and the government raised tariffs on local merchants, triggering one intense protest after another. People were frustrated and clashed with the Cossacks. Many Iranian patriots died or were injured, but demonstrations convinced the Shah to sign the constitution on the 5th of August 1906, shortly before he died. A Bill of Rights was formed. Each citizen was equal before the law. A legislative branch was created with the parliament called Majlis. The goal was to achieve independence from foreign powers and end royal corruption. People were ecstatic. The revolution was a huge victory. Not only was it the first in the region, but proved that change can occur peacefully. Iran was saved. The ancient civilization, Cyrus the Great, But Britain and Russia had other plans. The progress was not in their interest. Secretly, they signed an agreement, the Anglo-Russian Entente of 1907, dividing Iran into two spheres of influence. They demanded that the new Shah should repudiate the constitution. The people rejected the idea. The Russian Cossacks, with royal consent, let loose a reign of terror in the capital, brutally killing and arresting Iranian patriots. The parliament building was bombarded by Russian Cossacks in June 1908, but the people did not give up. A new national resistance began. Tabriz led the way. Surrounded by Russian Cossack troops, the siege of Tabriz was brutal. Iranians died daily. People reduced to eating grass to survive. Finally, the city fell. The Russian troops stormed the city, but the people of Tabriz were not done fighting. Sattar Khan and Baga Khan raised the flag of resistance. Freedom lovers from other countries supported the cause. Men like Howard Baskerville, the American schoolteacher in Tabriz, fought alongside freedom fighters. A statue now at the Tabriz Museum says, "Young American gave his life to the young constitution of Iran." Defiance in Tabriz grew into a national movement. People were mobilized, even getting support from the resilient Bakhtiari tribe. This set off alarm bells in London and St. Petersburg. The Russians threatened with occupation, but the Iranian people were defiant. In June of 1909, the freedom fighters of Tabriz entered Tehran. The Shah fled to Russia, and the Cossacks surrendered. Iran had made remarkable strides towards democracy. Universal male suffrage was proclaimed, religious minorities had seats in the parliament, political parties emerged favouring women's rights. But Britain and Russia intended to crush these achievements. Desperate to save the new democracy, Iranians turned to America and hired Morgan Shuster as Treasurer General. He was a good man, hard worker, and incorruptible. Later, he wrote the book Strangling of Persia because he understood the pain. He asked the parliament to enforce tax laws. The Russians demanded that Iranians should stop meddling in their own country's affairs. But the people did not back down, so Russia and Britain gave an ultimatum: dismiss Shuster and never again engage foreign subjects without the power's approval. This warning was read in the silence of the grounds of the Parliament building. Deputies, old and young, lawyers, merchants, princes, stood there in deep thought. Finally, one rose, a man of God. "It may be the will of Allah that our liberty be taken from us, but let us not sign them away with our own hands." With courage, the parliamentarians cast their own fate, the answer of a desperate people who are willing to sacrifice their national dignity. By their defiance, they sealed the fate. Russian troops occupied Tehran. They then ordered the young Shah to dissolve the parliament and dismiss Shuster, the American who would later say that, as he was leaving Iran, a realization swept over him that the hope of a patient people had been ruthlessly stampeded out by the armies of so-called civilized nations. Iran's first experiment with democracy was over in 1911, but its vivid impression never left the psyche of the people, and perhaps Iran's destiny would have been different if she did not sit on top of an ocean of oil.
در ایران فرقی نمی‌کنه شما در آذربایجان باشی یا بلوچستان یا خوزستان یا خراسان و کردستان. هر جای ایران وقتی بگی انقلاب مشروطه همه اسم ستارخان میارن، یا اگر بگی ستارخان همه میگن سردار ملی.